All right, well, this is the second part of my series of my looping setup. Figured today I would walk you through how I set up the looper board with the, what my buttons do and some of my settings. So the first thing, I actually just changed things around. What I have going over here from left to right, these two is track one. So this is record, play, and overdub. This is just stop and all clear. This is going to be just track two, which is the same as track one. Record, play, overdub, stop, all clear. I have this one set for when I use my Roland hand sonic, different types of percussion. It's just set to a measure. So I click that and get the measure of like some cymbals, some hi-hats, and it automatically stops it in the measure and plays. So it's perfect. And then this I have set up just as a one button feature. It's normally where I put my percussion for the drums. So it's bass, snare, and toms and such. And it's set up for play, stop, record, overdub, hold for all clear, and double click for stop or something like that, I believe. Up here, these buttons, this one is set for the undo, redo for track one. This is undo, redo for track two. And this is play, stop for track three, because I found lots of times when I'm doing and building a verse and a chorus, you may want to do a hi-hat or you want to do a cymbal crash, cymbals, and on the chorus you want them in, on the verses you want them out. So if you have them on the chorus, you can actually hit the stop and it should stop it'll stop the crash, and you still have the hi-hat underneath it. Kind of a nice little feature. So then moving over to here, I'll show you my setup. So you can see everything's on memory one at the moment. So if we go to, I'll start with the loop. So go to loop, track one. Hopefully you can see it okay. You see I have reverse off, one shot off, everything's centered. Something that you don't see a lot of people talk about is the play levels. So I've went all over the place and making sure my play levels are good and working with, say, playing live versus what the loop is. So the play level for the track one I have set for 75, and then it's set for immediate, for start mode immediate, stop mode immediate, overdub, FX are on, and then we have it set for multi. I have free, its loop sync is on, and to set to loop length, and I think over here is just tempo sync, which I don't bother with. Because what I found with tempo sync is it tries to sync to the internal tempo and not the fact that I'm using a hand sonic. So it messes everything up if you turn that on. So if you find yourself screwed up with that, turn that SOB off. Then over here I don't use the mic for recording. I have it turned off. So then you see I have instrument one. From my mixer, everything comes in to instrument one, or right here. So all of those come in. Instrument one's the only one on. I also made sure I turned off instrument two and I have the rhythm turned off. So that is track one. Now let's go over to track two. Pretty much the same thing, I do believe. So you get the play level set to 75. No different in here. Sorry about that glare, there we go. Multi, free, loop sync on, loop length on. Nothing changed there. You can see again, mic is turned off, instrument one is on, instrument two is off, and rhythm is off. Now if we come over to track three, that's where you start to see some changes. Reverse, off, off, center. Notice I have my play level now set at 110, because what I found is a lot of times when I'm playing live, not looped, it's sometimes hard to hear the rhythm. So I want to make sure that the rhythm is playing a little louder than the loop, and then also that the rhythm is playing a little louder than what my instruments are I'm playing live with. So I bring them up to about 110. And then everything else is pretty much the same here. Oh, except, hold on, going backwards. Here you go, this is where I was talking about. Measure one, loop sync is on, however it's set to immediate. What I found is if I set it over here to loop length or measure, it starts out of sync. So I want to set it to immediate, so when I click it, it stays in sync and comes right on when I want it to come on, rather than waiting to the end of the loop to kick on. And then everything else here is not any different. Off, 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 off. And then track 4 is pretty much going to be the same thing as track 1 and 2. Except I have this set to 115 as opposed to 110, because again, I want to hear the rhythm. I want to be able to kind of feel it, because I'm playing with I have two EV50 PA system, so I have 2 of those with 2 subs, so I want to be able to feel that bass kick, right? Coming over, no changes here. Set to free, loop length, and loop sync on. And I play everything in multi-mode in case you were curious. And that's all the tracks I use. I only use 1, 2, 3, 4. And I just started using the 4th one. Or actually, yeah, the 4th one. Because before it was just too confusing for me. But like most of you, I'm watching Matt Bolton play, and man, he's inspiring. So I try to incorporate verse chorus more in what my playing is. So now let's go into the menu, and we'll talk about the mixer. Again, it's one of those things that, man, it's taken me forever to get these levels right. But right now I have my mic. My mic goes in to my TC Helicon Voice Live Acoustic, then goes out into the mixer over there. And then from the mixer, I have a bus channel coming out going in here. So that they're stereo mics, but I do have the stereo sync turned off, which helped immensely with volume level. As you can see here, I have instrument backing up for a second. On inputs, setup. I just the other day realized I had this set to instrument as opposed to line level, and that's why my volumes were so loud on some things. So I just switched this off to line. If you haven't done that yet, and you're running your mixer directly into your board or your RC600, switch that to line. It makes your volume so much easier to manage. So back to the mixer. So I have the instrument 1 set at 200, and believe it or not, even though it's set to 200, I made sure in my the mixing station that I use that my levels are perfect, and I'm not getting anything more than that line right there set at 200 for my levels, so it's perfect. I don't use instrument 2, so it's still at 100. You see I have my mic input set at 45, which keeps it at a pretty good level, because here in the TC Helicon it has its own gain stage, so I was able to tweak it up, get a good gain going into my mixer, and this gives me a good balance at 45 with the volume levels with the overall mix. Moving over, main outs, I have them set at 100. They peak just below the level right here, which is where they should. The sub, when I do live streams, I use sub out going into my Scarlett interface, because unfortunately the Behringer 16 board I have does not have the outboard that you just connect it directly into, so I have to use the Scarlett, Focusrite Scarlett to go live stream. This is the level that I found before I did the line setup, so I have to readjust it here a little while, but I had to adjust this and then compensate for it on the Scarlett to make sure I had solid greens on the Scarlett to get a good signal coming out. I don't use sub 2 loop outs, so I like to bring the loop out levels lower than my overall volume of when I'm playing without looping. That way, if you want to take a lead over something, you're not having to crank the volume on your pedals to blast the lead. You're just playing over it anyway, so you can hear it. It's good. Then over here, rhythm out 100, phones out 100, and the master out's 100. And the master, again, peaks right there. It's kind of where I want it to be, and I think that's the optimal sound to get a good level out of it. So that's the levels, that's the board. Now let's talk about, so I use these two fellas right here. This one is my all start stop, and this is all clear. This one turns on a input effect for the radio for my vocals, and then this one turns on delay for all the instruments. And this is my A/B, and I use the B is just for the guitar going straight to the board, and the A is if I switch it over to A, that gets my bass sound out of my Harmonix Bass 9, which is a killer bass sim. And I actually have that running to its own separate spot on the board where I've gained it and comped it and put some EQ to it. Really get a good bass sound. So to show you here, let's go to the input effects. So if you don't know, you just hit loop twice, input effects. And here on FX1, so input effects 1, or excuse me, FXB is where I have the radio, right? And that's for my voice to turn it into like a radio sound. And that's the settings I have for that. I found 100 is about the best to get a good sound out of it. And there's really no other settings across. I just have it going to my mic and it's set to the switch turn on. So you can see it's on, off, okay? The next would be the delay, which I think is FXA. So FXA, I have a delay, quarter note 3 times, feedback 50, level there 100, and you can see my effects level of 50. So no other changes really there. And again, it's controlled by the foot switch. Right now it's off, there it's on. And they just plug into the back. If you don't know how to do that, let's walk through it real quick. If you remember how. Go to here, so menu twice, go to assign, and I think it's this one. No, that's the MIDI. Control functions, that was it. Control expression, so control 1, and the all start stop was this button right here. And that's control function 1. So all you do is you just hit the control function till you find the one you want, and that's it. Same for 2. 2 is the all clear. So on this FS7, this is control 1, this is control 2. You can change the polarity of those on the switch on the side, but for me that's makes it much easier to have all start stop here than all clear here. And then over here, going back, control 3 is FXB. You just make sure when you're doing that, you line up with the effects in the input effects that you want that it matches. There's so many things to twist and define in here. I mean, they're all over the place. And then lastly, control 4 is the delay. So if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. What I've found is this has been trial and error, and try to find people who knows what they're talking about to actually do this stuff to help me figure it out. But I figured out a lot of this on my own. So would love to any chime-ins, any recommendations. I do have an M6 Pro that I'm still learning how to use. Right now I have just set for this particular lo-fi. So I have a, it's set as a track effect, right? Yeah, track effect for all tracks that are recorded and looped. I click that on and it kind of gives a lo-fi effect to it. What I would love to, what I wanted to get this for was to do rather than do extra pedals down here for track 4, I wanted to have a record, play, stop, undo. I can't figure out how to do that. So if somebody can figure out the MIDI functions to make this stupid thing do a record and play and stop and undo, hit me up. I would love to learn that one. And then over here, I just have the El Capistrán Strymon and the Deco. Those are just connected to this. So I use this for kind of a slapback delay a little bit. And then if I want to have like a long delay, I'll just tap tempo in, click it on, it gives me that nice long delay for those ballad songs or something that just has a lot of delay to it. But that's the nutshell of my setup for how I have things done. Again, if you have any questions, let me know. If you liked it, like the video and subscribe. I'd love to chat with you more if you have questions. Next up, I'll do some videos on my Helix Stomp and some of the settings I have for that. But for right now, that's it. Have yourselves a fantastic day.